Hi, my name is Dan Thomason. I'm one of the co-founders of TekRek. Thank you all for being here this evening. I really appreciate you taking the time. Just to give you a little bit of perspective, TekRek is a niche recruitment firm specializing on data, software engineering, product with technology companies in Canada and the US. I want to share a little bit about the speaker series and sort of why we came up with this idea. So it was really our goal to connect and invite discussion on exciting developments taking place within the tech sector. Now, as recruiters, we spend most of our day discussing your amazing accomplishments, but part of our day is spent discussing exciting news, trends in data, AI, security, engineering. And we came to realize that we're really grateful to have such a diverse network, to regularly engage with and have these discussions, and wanted to share that experience with the wider technology community. Therefore, we thought running digital events would be a great platform for doing this, sharing experiences, learning from others, having an informal dialogue about the topics of the day is something that we really wanted to do. Now, as a business, it is our small way to give back to the overall ecosystem. For this evening's event, we have a great group of speakers joining. So Jan, he's the Senior Director of Data Science at Loblaw, will discuss AI production at scale, along with some tricks to add value if you are in a consulting or enterprise setting. Unfortunately, Parinaz will not be able to join this evening, but her colleague is in, AI tech lead from Georgian. She has prepared a great discussion on navigating AI landscape. It's a great perspective on how VCs view AI ML opportunities and challenges. Finally, Amir, he's the VP of Data Science at Arteria, will discuss large language models and having an impact on ML ops to low-cost model training. Finally, if you're in the audience and thinking, I'd be keen to work with one of these great speakers and I'm really open to opportunities, if you add in your LinkedIn details to the venue area, we can make sure to pass the message along. We're really excited to have Azin coming on next. She's the AI tech lead over at Georgian Partners, one of the leading VC firms here in the Toronto ecosystem. She's mapped out and done a lot of research on some of the AI technologies coming into the ecosystem, how to navigate and some of the opportunities and risks there. So without further ado, I'd love to bring on Azin to the stage.
Thanks, Daniel. Hi, everyone. Thanks for the invite and excited to be here today with you all. I think I can start sharing my screen, right?
Yes.
Perfect. Can you all see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Okay, perfect. So thanks everyone for joining. My name is Azin. I'm gonna start with a brief intro. Yes, so my name is Azin. I did my graduate studies at U of T, a part of the computer science group, then tried to start my own company. And after that, just because I was very interested in this intersection of business and technology, I found Georgian, which was definitely a great find. And fast forward, I think 4 or 5 years, I'm one of the AI tech leads on the R&D side, and working with a lot of our portfolio companies. So today I'm going to talk about AI, ML, and ML opportunities and challenges. I'm basically going to dive into 9 areas, and basically for each area, I'll talk about some of the opportunities and also questions that companies, especially startups, have to consider. And feel free to interrupt me at any point or just ask your questions. Okay, perfect. So the first trend that's definitely shaking the industry, and actually many industries, many companies, is generative AI. I'm sure you all have been hearing about it since ChatGPT last year came out. A lot of it basically captivated the attention of a much broader community than the technical community. And after that, we've sort of like been this era of hearing updates on a daily basis. So OpenAI GPT-4 was released a few weeks ago. Then Microsoft, they demoed their Copilot 365, which was amazing, and sort of integrating a lot of models from OpenAI and other things to their platform. Anthropic has been pretty active. They just actually announced today that they're sort of integrating. They have integrated their model in a Slack, and so you can actually use their model in a Slack, and it's a feature now. Cerebras, they released an open source 7 of their sort of like GPT models, some of which are 13 billion parameters, and the same. We've been hearing a lot from Google, large language model safety on the safety side, and so on and so forth. So generative AI is definitely one of the biggest trends of probably the last few decades, shaking up a lot of industries, and so that's, I think you probably have all heard about a lot of it now. When it comes to generative AI, I think we have seen a lot of models coming out over the last few years, especially after the famous paper "Attention is All You Need" in 2017. These models, they're different in terms of model size, architecture, training data, pre-training objective, ethical fine-tuning, and other aspects. And so I think one important question, actually two important questions, is that if you're using on a use case, which model is more relevant for your use case when it comes to data, cost, ethical aspects, performance, and etc. And also, if you wanted to use any of these models, how you can tailor it for your specific use case. So these are the two most important questions we have heard from companies that we work with, and so I'm gonna get into the actually both of these pretty shortly. So for the first question, or basically which model is appropriate for your use case, I think there are a lot of good benchmarks, and that's another nice thing that's happening on the side. There's this benchmark called Help from Stanford University. They're pretty active. They're actively monitoring like 36 models on 42 different tasks across 57 different metrics, and so you can get a pretty good sense of what are the top performing models for different tasks. And on different benchmarks. And there are also a lot of sort of glossaries or data dictionary on the internet where you can find different descriptions of models and how they're trained, what data it's used to train them, and so on and so forth. And then moving to the second question, how you can customize your solution. The field is clearly evolving so fast. I mean, there are a lot of techniques, and there are new techniques coming out every day. So I've listed a couple of those techniques here. I'm gonna go over them, but this is definitely, everything here is definitely evolving very fast, and it may be we may have a lot of new approaches in a couple of months or even probably weeks. So the first one that you all have heard about, it's not a new technique. It's been around for many years. It's fine tuning. For fine tuning, there sometimes you can tune your input output layers. Sometimes you want to tune the whole model, and there are new methods coming out called like instruction tuning and so on and so forth. So in instruction tuning, you basically fine tune your model on a set of instructions that are converted using different templates, and the goal is to basically learn model how different tasks are written, or are sort of like how different tasks are can are written basically for the model. So this, it's shown that it can help with improving the performance on tasks that require delicate prompts, and the prompt is very prompt sensitive. The other thing is prompt engineering. This is also not new. I think when GPT-3 was announced a few years ago, soon people realized that in order to use the model, the GPT-3 model for downstream tasks, you can actually give it some sort of prompts or a description of your task, and sometimes a few examples, and it can do a relatively a good job. And so prompt engineering, I would say, is equal to what we used to have as zero-shot few-shot learning before. But I think what happened was that GPT-3 showed that with these sort of large model, um, it's actually possible to implement this idea of in-context learning. So you basically are given when you have a huge large language model, You can basically give it a couple of prompts and ask the model to do certain tasks. And soon after prompt engineering, I think it was with a paper that was published by Google. They showed that you don't need to really stick with prompts that are human readable, and you can actually treat your prompts as tunable parameters. And so that's basically how this new field of like prompt optimization sort of started. Um, and so if you look at the prompt optimization methods now, they generally lie into two categories: discrete prompt optimization and continuous prompt optimization. So discrete prompt optimization method, technically, they try to find a prompt that gives the highest performance for your task, but they actually stick with the tokens in the language usually. And so can think about it as as you can think about of these methods as research methods or research like search algorithms that try to come up with templates or prompts that are human readable but give higher performance compared to just like handcrafting a prompt. And then there are continuous prompt optimization method. These methods, again, they don't necessarily stick with the tokens in the language, and so the prompt is treated as tunable parameters, and so some they may not be even human readable, but it's shown that they can lead to the same performance as fine tuning when you're working with large models. And then lastly, reinforcement learning with human feedback, which is the secret sauce of ChatGPT and GPT-4. It's basically this sort of technique to align these gigantic models with human values. And the reason we have seen these like RLHF basically implemented for large model is because um, for for objectives like being ethical or being funny, it's really hard to quantify them and basically convert them to an optimization objective for the model. So that's the reason why people have looked into reinforcement learning with human feedback, where basically you have the model on one side and you have the human feedback. You're collecting human feedback from the other side, and sort of you tune the model with human feedback and preferences. And so that's why models like ChatGPT and GPT-4 again are so broadly used, just because of this human alignment piece. You as a user can interact with them very easily and ask your questions. So I think when it comes to customizing your solution, the first question is that what is the most appropriate approach for you, and you can think about this, and you can probably pick the right solution based on how much cost you can afford, the business requirement, the volume of data you have, and the other consideration. And also, it's worth noting that there are a lot of platforms like OpenAI, Cohere, NVIDIA that have features like fine tuning, and it makes it super easy for you to fine tune any of these models. So basically, the second question is that can you use any of these platforms to get us started? And so the third trend that I wanted to talk is ML ops. I think that this plot, you have seen probably a lot of different versions of it recently. It's not a new trend. We've seen the growth in the size of these models, and now we're at the point that there are that basically the chat GPT was 13 billion parameters, and even there are bigger and bigger models are coming out. So I think the next important question, which has led to this concept of LLM ops, which is not basically a new area. I think a lot of people say that we shouldn't even give it a separate name or a distinct name. Is basically about operationalizing these types of large language models, and there are platforms that are emerging to sort of help with fine tuning these models and serving them and helping with that human feedback loop. And so the question here is that what platforms are suitable for your problems? Can you use any of these platforms for fine tuning or for like for serving your models, and are they sufficiently mature? The fourth trend that I would like to talk about is responsible AI. This is plot by Anthropic, which is one of the leaders in terms of generative AI models, and they're basically focused on making these models harmless, helpful, and honest, which they call as triple H. Uh, so um, so why this is important? Because basically when you for example, if you're working on creating a chatbot, it's very important on whether the content that your chatbot is generating is helpful for your users, and what can and also it's also quite crucial to think about positive potential negative impacts. And so that's basically why there has been a lot of focus on this. Like, and in terms of large language models, I think the way it's sort of implemented now goes back to that reinforcement learning with human feedback. Looking at the big players like OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, the focus to make these models more responsible and more aligned with human values. There has been a lot of focus, and yeah, again, these companies have tried to sort of implement this idea of alignment in RLHF loops. And so I think the questions here is that if you're working on any use cases here, what are the broader societal impact of your solution? Are there any potential negative consequences? And if so, what guidelines can be established to mitigate them? We see we're actually in the middle of this right now with the letter that was released recently, and just shows that people are really concerned about the potential negative impacts, and it's great that the society, this sort of discussions are happening right now, and we're sort of in the middle of it. And then the other question is that what measures have you implemented to ensure privacy and security? And this basically can help building trust with your customers. Like, is your AI system transparent and explainable enough? If there are biases in your system, and how you can address them. The fifth one is multimodal AI. I think you all again have heard about probably and tried GPT-4 now. It was a model. This is basically the more advanced and multimodal, the more advanced version of ChatGPT that also has a vision modality. And because of the vision modality, not only it has new capabilities, but also it has a higher performance on some of the previous benchmarks and tasks. And so I think along with releasing the model, OpenAI, they released their tech report, which had a lot of insight about the performance of the model, and again, how much they have tried to basically make this model safe and aligned with human values. And I think the question is for a lot of the companies that have this concept of multimodal data. I think the question is, if you have unimodal models trained for your customers and are already in the production, can you move to the next stage of creating your multimodal models and taking advantage of all the data that you have? And so I think that's why it's super important to basically be aware of what's happening in this area, and what are the new applications, what are the limitations, and whether it can impact your company and your application, basically. The last one, the sixth one is low-code, no-code platforms. There are a lot of platforms that are coming, I would say on a daily basis. I also put the AutoML platforms on the low-code, no-code platforms. And there are also a lot of platforms to create apps with just, from just a sketch, or just like a couple of moving couple of things in a UI. And they have made a lot of things much simpler. Like if you wanted to create an app now, you don't need to actually develop it from scratch, and these platforms allow you to do it with just probably in a couple of hours. There are also platforms for large language models. NVIDIA has its own playground now for fine-tuning models, and they actually just talked about three different parts of their a system that is new, and you can use NVIDIA cloud, basically NVIDIA platform for training vision models, for training models that are designed for proteins, and also for just uh, NLP models. Same as Cohere, Mosaic ML, and so many other players here. So a lot of these providers just can bring a lot of productivity and efficiency. And so it could be, I think it would be, we all basically need to know if any of these platforms can make us more productive, efficient, are suitable for our use cases, and yeah, which ones we should recommend. And so the last three that are also happening are AR, VR, quantum, edge computing, and TinyML. Just being considerate of the time, I'm not gonna go into these three, but I guess the reason I wanted to also highlight these is because there are a lot of advances happening in all of these three fields. Apple actually just announced that they're gonna release their mixed reality glasses on June 5th, which is going to be pretty exciting. In quantum computing, there are a lot of advances that are happening, and there are some, discussions about IBM. Basically, IBM and Google One are targeting to build machines with 1 million or 10,000 thousand qubits in the next 5 to 10 years, which can change a lot of the things. And edge computing and TinyML, of course, it's already happening. Every time you say, "Okay, Google, Alexa," or "Hey Siri," it's an example of TinyML, and it's just gonna, I think, we're just gonna see the emergence of these more and more in our daily life. So I think the question is that will any of these trends shaking the industry in the close future, and should we prepare and adopt basically for adoption? And our suggestion to go ahead with all of these trends is we basically follow this philosophy: crawl, walk, run. And what I mean by crawl, walk, run philosophy is that the first step is just mastering the basics, building your strategy around this new technology, building your team, collecting data, and just understanding your data, and then building or buying your first model for production. Then, when you have all the basics, the next step would be extending your capabilities, executing on your strategy, advancing your team, adding people with more specialized background, building your data flywheel, which is basically that loop between your AI models and your customers, and starting to move more and more models to production. And then lastly would be run, which is about maximizing your capabilities, moving from just having a strategy to becoming a thought leader in that area. You probably wanted to have a full team, which is very efficient and can do things end to end. You have your data flywheel fully in place, and for example, in the context of large language models, when you have your data flywheel fully in place, you can implement technical, you can go ahead with implementing and developing things like reinforcement learning with human in the loop, which can bring a ton of value. And you probably wanted to have your models in production, driving a lot of differentiation. And so with that comes to the end of my talk. Just wanted to mention two things. We have a few open positions. If you're interested, feel free to reach out to me on LinkedIn. We also have an active community of technical people. We run monthly workshops and sessions on large language models, NLP, vision, ML ops, all sorts of areas related to ML. If you would like to join our community, please feel free to apply. The links are available online, and you can also use this QR code. And I think that's the end of my talk. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing such an in-depth presentation. I really appreciate that. And also those links to those monthly events, they're absolutely great. So I really encourage all the audience to sign up and attend, especially for a more tailored AI focus. I know we are a little bit of a crunch for time, but I got a pretty pressing question for you. Being such an expert in AI research, do you have any go-to sources that you try to visit to stay up to date with market trends or new technologies entering, either from an academic perspective or even from like a news perspective that you trust?
That is a great question, Daniel. I would say, aside from general, platforms like Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram news channels, and things like that, I really like to leverage the power of community. We have basically just understanding, learning the trends from my colleagues, the group that I shared, and I basically briefly talked about. We have experts coming to our channel and basically giving presentations on various topics. And I think, to be honest, I found that to be the most effective way of communicating and learning about a lot of these trends, because you when you chat with people, you can ask them questions and you can have a lot of back and forth, diving deep when you want to, and so on and so forth. And aside from that, for some of the other topics, older topics, GPT-4 and ChatGPT, it can do a great job in explaining complex topics with a simple language. So
No, that's great, and thank you so much for putting it together, and absolutely encourage all the audience to get in touch with us. And thank you so much for participating today.
thank you, Daniel. Thanks, everyone. Have a great rest of the day.
Cheers. Awesome. So we've had two great speakers so far. We've got, our final one coming up with Amir. So he's the VP of Data Science at Arteria AI. Arteria AI is a really exciting company that focuses on NLP within the legal tech space. Amir is going to be talking a little bit about sort of large language ops and some of the, challenges and maybe risks when it comes down to working as a data scientist in this space. So without further ado, I'm going to bring Amir on the stage for our last speaker of the evening.
Thank you, Dan. Can you guys hear me well?
We can hear you well.
Okay, fantastic. Hi, everyone. Let me see if I can share the presentation. Oh, you already have it?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So here's the topic that we would like to talk about today. You're a data scientist. We are all data scientists. And a lot is happening. And we want to know what is going on and how all of that is going to affect us, and how that is going to affect our jobs, and what we can do to stay relevant and to grow as the field grows. So I'm Amir. I'm heading up AI at Arteria, and I'm a scientist. I'm an astrophysicist. And at Arteria, we are building systems, that we are building products that help you deal with documentation. Arteria is a fintech company, and there's a lot of documentation in the financial industry, and most of the data that you have is actually in the form of unstructured data, text, documents, scanned documents, scanned images, and all of that information is trapped inside those documents. So you want to build efficient ways of finding the information there and doing things with it and changing your documents and basically making your documents useful and relevant. It's a great challenge, and for that we are using a lot of NLP, a lot of computer vision, a lot of multimodal models, and a lot of foundation models, including large language models. I'm hoping to give you an overview of how this field is changing and how that is going to help data scientists grow with it. I hope to get a lot of questions, so I'm not going to show you a lot of slides. So let's see. Depending on when you joined the data science industry, you must have entered at some phase where this is the arrow of time. It goes from left to right, and these are the different tools that we have been using over the past, I would say, past decade mostly. Started with scikit-learn, and then deep learning, and then that was the time when machine learning happened, and everything became scikit-learn, and then deep learning became a thing. PyTorch, TensorFlow, Lightning, FastAI, and different deep learning tools. And then you started getting deep into each application. And so TIM was built for everything computer vision, and Hugging Face for everything NLP, and then for everything transformers, which is now much more than NLP. And then recently we got into this era of GPTs and generative models and large language models, and then people started panicking, and they started asking questions that if this is happening, what is going to happen to us? And the reality is, for us as data scientists, nothing is new. This is what we have seen before, and you see how much this whole data science scenery has changed, and now it is changing still. What I wanted to tell you today is that this actually is good opportunity to use more tools and to learn more and to expand what we are doing as data scientists. Of course, it is impossible to see the future, but we are scientists and we can predict. We can try to come up with a version of that question that would allow us to answer this, to find answers. So let me change it to what is it that the large language models are providing to the data scientists as tools that we can use to change the way we are doing things, and how is it going to affect our jobs. So first of all, one of the immediate use cases of this is you can use them as writing aids, and that is a very good tool. These large models are being integrated into the tools that you're using every day. They are very helpful if you use them as writing aids. That they would help you rephrase your text. They would help you put it in good grammatical context, and it's a no-brainer. It's good, right? For another use case that these models are really, really good at is in coding. So helping you to code better is one of the areas that these models have proven to be helpful. There is a lot. There's going to be a lot of jobs that did not exist before. So people keep talking about losing jobs and jobs disappearing because of these models, but I'm going to show you a list of jobs that are going to be created because of what is happening today. One of them, and I'm very glad that Ozin gave you that overview before me, because you're familiar with everything that is happening there. So prompt engineering is a job that is going to be there. You're going to see a lot of prompt engineering jobs and people who are doing that, and it has the full spectrum from people who are going to be doing manual prompt engineering, and that doesn't require any programming. Actually, it's a way of calling the right API with the right prompts. If you have been using Midjourney, you're very familiar with that. It's the art of asking nicely, asking the right question. So from there, all the way to prompt optimization and writing programs and algorithms to optimize and find your prompts in the different ways that Azin just described. Another use case which is possible today is before we were dealing with these situations where if you wanted to do machine learning, you needed data, and that data needed to be labeled. Now, for the past couple of years, we have been in this era of having access to foundation models that have been trained on a lot of data, and they have that information captured in them that you can use them to comprehend text and to answer questions without them having seen labeled data before. So you can use them zero shot, you can do few shot, you can do in context learning, and this is going to have a huge effect on how we think and build products that are powered by machine learning. If you're doing conversational AI, if you're doing chatbots today, you have much more tools. It is this, what is happening is going to affect you, but in the way that if you stay up to date, it's going to give you more tools. All of this is what is possible today, and what you can use these models for to make you more successful. Now, for tomorrow and the near future, there is going to be a lot more of applications and a lot more new ways of using these models. For example, you can train these large language models to use tools. You can use them as agents. So that is a very interesting way of thinking about them, because instead of thinking about these large language models as this is a classifier, or this is a generative model or whatever, we are talking about using them as the backbones of how we are of what we are building as a product. And they start the chains, and they decide what to do, and they they help you reason, and they help you pick the right tools along the way to get the job done. They're going to be useful in the way we are interacting with the databases and the knowledge bases as well. It's going to make it much more easy, and it's going to bring natural language to databases and to interacting with the knowledge bases. So instead of us learning to speak the language of the machine, SQL, we talk and we say what we want, and we use large language models to get that done with the databases, and that is going to have a real effect there. Another one is how we interact with our documents and with our unstructured data. Another huge one is the effect it has on the UX, which is usually underrated and people do not talk a lot about this. But that is, in my opinion, that's one of the most profound effect that this is going to have on our lives, of changing and evolving how we think about UX and how we build user experience in the products. And there's going to be a lot of job opportunities in the future around ML ops, machine learning operations, to run these models. These models are going to be huge, and if you want to run them for your own company, you need to have the skill set and the engineering capabilities to deploy them and to optimize them and to use them in real time. All kinds of tuning, fine tuning these models to make them yours and to get them to work for your purposes is going to be huge. A lot of people are going to be doing that, and everything uh, around alignment, and whether it is reinforcement learning, human feedback, um, or anything of that sort is going to be another field that a lot of data scientists will be working on, and none of these jobs exist today. All of these are new. One last thing I want to mention is making these models small is something that hasn't happened much before, because this field is so new. But we will see the time where all of these big models are going to be distilled and and pruned to become very small, that you can easily use them without spending too much money on them. So overall, this is what is happening. What is important is to stay up to date, to understand what is going on, and to pick the right aspect of this and to grow with this field as the field is growing. Um, I think if there are questions, I will answer those in the question section. And what we are doing at Arteria is using all of these models that I just mentioned to create multimodal models based on foundation models that are pre-trained on a lot of data and enable you and enable the users to go and read the documents and extract information from them, and to enable them to work with documentation, which, if you have ever had to read a 400-page contract or even a book to find important information and do something about it, you know how complicated it is. And with what we are building, um, doing that is becoming very easy and fast. And if that is something that you find interesting and you would like to work at the on the cutting edge of all of these technologies, we have jobs for that, and we would love to see you there. We are hiring. Now, I will stop here and I will take some questions if there are questions.
Yeah, no, thank you so much, Amir. I appreciate the Yoda reference, looking into the future. I know all of us Star Wars fans are pretty excited about that. Um, I want to, when you talk about these new jobs entering into the workforce, right? I think for a lot of people within the field, or even looking at, okay, well, how can I upskill in these areas? Um, how would you maybe recommend for data scientists to try and stay as up to date as possible with sort of what's going on, and how they can differentiate themselves as becoming experts in these new fields?
Um, great question. So my recommendation is is to read a lot, and read everything that that you can find on Twitter. Twitter is the best place. You get a lot of good news right when they happen, and so once when you're reading it, don't just stay at the surface. See what you're interested in. The what I describe is like many different areas and many different directions. You're probably going to be interested in maybe five of them, maybe one. You're lucky if it's only one because you know exactly what you want to do. But maybe five of them are interesting to you. Um, Great news is that most of it is open source. Even if you have been following the trend these days, even when some companies come up with things that are not open source, in a very short time after that, someone else will open source it and will create something that is open source, and they publish a paper, and there are courses online. Hugging Face has a free course that brings you up to speed with the best of transformers. That's a must. PyTorch is a free course online that you can take, and when you learn these two, then anything that appears and it's open source, and it comes with a paper and with a documentation, all you need to do is to read and go deep into it, and that is the only way that you can uh, that you can stand out, and you can go deeper into that. Otherwise, there's going to be so much noise, and if you only stay at the surface, you will be completely confused, and you will end up going after the hype and the open letters, as opposed to here is the thing that actually you can do to build something that works, and to help you grow and to help your career grow. So my main recommendation is to read and learn and do.
Okay, I got, now that you mentioned how important Twitter was, any handles that you particularly like to follow, or any, maybe resources on Twitter that you say, oh, this is, I always get a, I always enjoy seeing this person post.
I
Super on the spot question, so I'm sorry about that, but
Yeah,
I
so
thought I had to ask.
so instead of giving you a fish, I'll teach you fishing. Um, See what you're interested in, and who are the people, the researchers, or the people in that industry doing that, and then search them on Twitter and follow them. And these people are usually not the business people. They are the data science people and the AI researchers. Usually, that's how I have seen it. And when you find your community, then from there you go friends of friends, and you see what they like, and what they repost, and then you start growing your community in Twitter. That's the best way. And
Okay.
yeah, so basically stay away from uh, from from um, from non-scientific, non-technical stuff, because life is short and you want to learn and you want to do stuff.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking time today, Amir. I definitely appreciate it. And for those of you who are interested, especially in the NLP space, I think chatting with Amir would be really, really important, and reaching out at Arteria AI, really great place to work. So thank you for coming online and sharing.
Thank you for inviting me. Have a good evening.
Awesome. So that concludes our event tonight. As I mentioned earlier in the talk, we're trying to make these a little bit of a regular event, still our second one. So with a little bit of challenges here or there, but we're looking forward to continuing the process, and hopefully touching on a multiple of different topics. The next one should be on software development, and we'll be gearing a data event probably at the end of end of Q2, maybe into early Q3. So we look forward to having everyone there. in the future. Thanks so much, and tune in to the next one. Have a great day. Bye-bye.